The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, at last. I've been waiting for years to do this. You've been there before, probably, I don't know, a dozen, maybe 5 dozen times.
You've been to Merthyr? You've been to Merthyr Tydfil?
Merthyr, yeah. I went to Merthyr nightclub. No, I went to, almost like it, the Asylum, which I know that has connotations of something else, but it's an events venue, and moreover, probably, I would imagine it does mostly weddings. I don't know, actually, because they use it for films too, don't they? In London.
Yeah, this is that place in Peckham, isn't it?
Peckham.
In the middle of the veterans' homes.
Well, do you know what? See, I thought the Asylum, when I asked the cab driver, in fact, no, I had several firsts that day. It wasn't a black cab driver. I'm sorry, black cab drivers. I've been really loyal for years, but I've just started using Uber. And so it was my first Uber drive, and the guy took me there, and he said, oh, I don't know this place, which I would imagine is synonymous with being an Uber driver. And I said, oh, it used to be an asylum. It was, obviously a hospital. He said, oh. But it wasn't ever a hospital. Do you know what it was?
No, I did. I knew that. I thought it was a hospital as well, but somebody did tell me after that it wasn't. But I don't know what it was actually built for.
No, it used to be the place where publicans of London, once you'd finished your term calling last orders, that's where you were shipped out to. And that's why when you go in the door, do you see the weird shape of the door that sort of comes in at the top? It's all skewy. Yeah. Masonic.
It's Masonic.
Yeah.
I see, they got a lot to answer for, those boys.
And then it was bombed out during the war, and it was a home for the pigeons for ages. Then they just put, I was going to say aspergilus roofing, asbestos roofing, made out of asparagus stalks on the roof, and now it's a venue, and it's shabby chic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very popular place, but I know they film stuff and things in there. But yeah, that's interesting. I had to see. I knew it wasn't what I thought it was originally, but I didn't know it was where the old puppy people went afterwards.
Publicans, you get put out to what do they call it?
Pasture.
Put out to pasture.
They get put out to non-pasteurised IPA.
The Fujicast.
That sort of thing. Well, what an amazing venue. I tell you what, being a wedding photographer primarily does take you to some quite interesting places, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You do see a bit, and sometimes quite literally a bit of the world. Anyway, welcome to the Fujicast. Nice to be back. We were even talking the other day, perhaps I shouldn't say this bit, but I even said, Kev, I do miss it every week, and we both said, maybe we could do it every other week. It's edging back already. Anyway, you and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the Fujicast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail, send a click at fujicast.co.uk. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, don't worry, it's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very, very welcome. Kev's book of the week this week is Byker Revisited. I wanted to do it with the accent, but
I was thinking that as well. I can't even do my own accent, let alone other people's.
Byker Grove. No, I can't. Yeah. Can't do it.
Byker Revisited.
That doesn't sound.
I know. It's going to be even worse when I try and pronounce the author, the photographer's name.
Oh right, okay.
Sirkka-Liisa Konttinen.
Oh, absolutely correct.
That book though.
Say it again? No, don't bother.
Yeah.
We have some news, very exciting news about the 16th of June. And of course we have a guest this week who is going to be talking to us in two parts during the show. He is a Fujifilm X-Photographer and creator and ambassador in America who transits between DC and his new home in Jamaica. Quote, I believe that the world around me is spectacular. Not just the big things like the oceans and the sunsets and the seven wonders, but also the things that would ordinarily be considered boring or mundane. Kirth Bobb is on the show. And if we get the thumb screws right, we might even be able to tempt Mullins into dishing the secrets of the universe as far as Fujifilm is concerned with new cameras. Do you like that silence? Very good. If you have one of those apps that closes all the silences in, that would have meant nothing to you.
I have no idea what you're on about.
No, but what do you mean? Either the cameras or the? So we can't talk about the or the. None of that. No.
No.
Okay. But if you wait to the 16th of June, then some of this will be clearer, won't it?
Hopefully. Yeah, although not guaranteed, but yeah, hopefully.
Right.
Yes, so the 16th of June.
Shall we sideswerve that bit first and do the patrons, because we've got some new folk to say hello to, haven't we?
Yeah. So thank you very much, Paul Waring, Mark Neal, Cy Biles, Adam Featherstone, Mike Wooten, for signing up and being patron. Very much appreciated. And all of you that are patrons will now know that we are fully invested in our monthly Zoom. We're going to do some image critiquing this week.
Well,
thank you very much, guys.
That would have been last week, Kev. We'd have done that last week. The magic of podcasting.
Damn. Yeah. Oh, I'm actually on holiday today. Then, in that case.
Oh yeah, of course you are. I'm not.
Away.
I'm shooting a wedding.
I'm not here.
Where are you then?
I'm in. Well, it's also a little bit of a secret, though. It won't be because it's. The time has gone now, and we're past, or are we forward, or are we ahead? Anyway, I will be in a
hot tub.
An American. Yeah, there is a hot tub. It's an American. What are those caravans? Those silver.
Oh, the big silver. What are they called?
They've got a name, haven't they?
Silver streak? No, silver. Silver wagon. Silver lining. Silver surfer. I can't think of any other silvers.
We're getting worse as we get older.
Silver medal.
Type in American silver caravan.
They are silver something, aren't they? Quicksilver, no. Silver caravan. Airstream.
Yes.
Nothing to do with silver.
We are. It's Albie's birthday today. In fact, if you're listening on the day of the podcast.
So where are you? Where is it?
It's on a farm in Cornwall with its own hot tub and barbecue and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we've got to take the dogs, but it should be nicer than that. Yeah, we're going for 3 or 4 days, which will be very nice. And Albie doesn't know about it, which is great. Well, we're going to tell him that on the when we go on Friday. That he is, we're going to the dentist.
Oh, lovely.
So that'll be he'll be in the most grumpiest of moods. And hopefully it'll take him a little while, probably until we get past like Bristol before he's like,
as I say, when he, at some stage, because I'm assuming that he doesn't go to the dentist far outside Mum's.
No, exactly,
He's going to be saying, hang on a moment, Dad, we're in Cornwall.
Yeah. No, so my plan is, the thing is, he's a clever little he's a clever little so he'll just look at the sat nav straight away and go, Dad, you're lying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my plan was to tell him we're going to the dentist, and then I was going to say, well, actually, because he'll say, why are we taking the dogs to the dentist? And then I'll say, well, actually, maybe we'll go to Weston for the afternoon or something afterwards because he likes Weston. Yeah. And that will get us as far as Weston because you've got to drive right past Weston.
Oh, clever, yeah.
But thereafter, he will probably think, hang on a cotton picking minute.
Yeah.
So I'm not here.
Oh, what a lovely, lovely adventure. Very nice.
In an Airstream or a hot tub.
And a hot tub. Yeah, you can't do anything without a hot tub being involved now. Why didn't you get one at home, by the way? I've never understood why you don't have one.
No, I couldn't, because I would literally never do anything in my life.
Right. 16th of June. Then we'll get to your questions. 16th of June, House of Photography in the world-famous Covent Garden region of London.
Yeah. So the 16th of June, we will be doing our event at the House of Photography. There's essentially 3 parts to it. In the morning, we're hoping to do some kind of very informal photo walk for a couple of hours, maybe. And then we will be at the House of Photography from around, we'll have the whole upstairs to ourselves from probably 4 o'clock till maybe 7 p.m. or something. And we will do a live podcast recording. Andreas will be with us to answer your questions. Of all things being equal, there will be new goodies for you to look at, touch.
What goodies, Kev?
Pre-order
what goodies?
Things. Stuff like that. We may have a couple of goodies to throw away and throw out to the audience as we go through. We will then thereafter go out for a couple of non-alcoholic drinks for those that wish to. It's totally free, absolutely free. All of it is free. However, you will need to get a ticket to it, which you will be able to do via the fujicast.co.uk website. Go to the merch tab. And there's a big picture of Neil and I. Just click on that link and it will ask you the 3 things that you're coming to, whether you're going to come to the photo walk, the actual podcast recording, or the evening thing, or all 3. Obviously, We ideally want you to come to all three, but it's entirely up to you. We are limited because the House of Photography, for as beautiful as it is, we are limited by fire and health and safety and all that kind of stuff. So there is a finite amount of tickets. The patrons have had first bag of them.
There's a load
the last
gone.
2 weeks
There's a load
snapping
gone.
up.
Yeah.
But there are plenty left. Go to fujicast.co.uk, and I will, of course, put a post in the Facebook group to explain all of this. Yeah. Now, one thing that we are going to do also, because we are lovely like this, is we're going to do something that we're going to call Fujicast Got Talent.
Oh, yes.
How about that? Fujicast Got Talent. So this is your opportunity, really, to put your work out there if you wish to. We are, those that remember the X-Weddings Festival that I put together, I was very keen to give a speaking slot to somebody who had never really done it before, but, wanted to, and all that kind of stuff. So a similar thing, really. So really the only way I can see this working, but obviously feel free to let us know if you think there's better ways, is we'll have two, I'd say 10-minute sessions, 2 10-minute presentation slots before we do the podcast recording at the House of Photography. There'll be a big screen and all that kind of stuff. So you can show your pictures, do a little bit of a chat, get your face in front of the audience and your work known, all of that kind of stuff, if you so wish to, if you're comfortable about doing this. Now, what we're going to do is I'll again open up a thread in the Facebook group asking people to submit a little tiny proposal. I want to talk about pictures of my kids because I love them, that kind of stuff. And then we'll do a simple voting system for who wants to listen to who kind of thing. So if you're into that, if we get nobody bothered, then that's absolutely fine. We'll write that down. I've got a massive book of mistakes, so I'll just add it to the list in there. But if you are keen to do something like that, then we've got some absolutely amazing photographers in the Fujicast community, and it would be good to see some of your work. Now, a little caveat with that is that I would say absolutely does not have to be a presentation about how or why you use Fujifilm cameras, all of that kind of stuff. The pictures wouldn't have to necessarily have been shot on Fujifilm cameras. However, I would just like to say that, if we are at the Fujifilm House of Photography, they are graciously hosting us. Yeah. So if I would err away from a presentation saying this is, you shot all this on Sony and these are the reasons why you shot them on Sony and blah, 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 blah. And I'll also say that those people who are shooting things on Sony probably in the future may not wish to. I can't say anything else.
Yeah. Well, Steve Vaughan has already spoken to me. He's going to be turning up to do his Sony presentation on his cricket photography.
Yeah.
It's all your
tears.
It's all
I'll take photographs of the tears.
Your wildest dreams come true.
Oh, the cricket. Yeah. Cricket. Good Lord.
No, good lords.
Good lords. What a way to spend 5 days of your life for a drop of rain to ruin it and make it a draw. Anyway, that aside, there are some wonderful cricket pictures though, actually. So if you're interested in that, Fujicast Got Talent. Now we're looking for people who are comfortable kind of standing up in front of 50, 60, 70 people maybe. So have a little bit of think about that. But what I will also say to you is everybody has to do it for the first time, and we are a friendly bunch. And there will be no heckling from the crowd or anything like that. This is all about support and all about kind of giving you a platform, to show your pictures. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a whole lovely day of photography, fun. It's totally free, and but you will absolutely need to get one of the tickets because we need to know numbers. We need to know who's coming. We need to know how much how many drinks we need to get in. All of that kind of stuff. No.
Now I don't know if you thought the photo walk element through, because if 70 people say, yeah, I'd like to do everything, please, we might end up looking like a protest, and the Metropolitan Police will be on us like a swarm.
Yeah, in which case we'll split them up a bit.
That's right. We'll just carry banners around. No more cricket.
Yeah. And for those of you that have never been to the House of Photography, it is an amazing place. There's exhibitions, obviously. There's the gear and stuff. You can. I'm not sure whether you would be able to get your sensors cleaned and stuff, but I think you can. I might just double check that and let you all know. But yeah, there's you can even do printing there and everything. It is a fantastic place, and you'll have plenty of time to wander the floors because there are several of them. Yep. The Fujifilm House of Photography.
Right, should we do some questions?
I think we should. I mean, we're about an hour in and we haven't done anything yet.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Till next month. We'll see you later. Right.
Yep.
Do you want to go first with yours, or shall I go with a question from the email?
You go.
Okay, this one is from Stephen Champion.
Why have people got so many cool names?
I know. I used to work with a broadcaster called Sarah Champion. I always thought that was the best name for a broadcaster. Sounded great in the jingle.
Champion.
Hello, Kev. Hello, Neil. I've listened to your podcast almost from day one, but this is my first time I've written in, so hopefully my question is worth the wait. As a hobbyist club photographer, I take images of anything and everything, sometimes for club competitions, but mostly just for fun. I've owned an X-T2 for the last 3 to 4 years, absolutely love the camera, still only use the kit lens. I use the X-T2 for 95% of my photography, only straying back to the old faithful Nikon D700 for close-up portrait model work, as I like the softness from the lower pixel count on the full-frame sensor. My question is it time, Stephen, together, you and I could hopefully wheedle something out from the Kevster here, is it time for an update to the X-T4? I know that's an impossible question to answer from my personal perspective, so could you just list the main advantages for a hobbyist club photographer of the X-T4 over the older X-T2? Thanks to the podcast, guys. Steve Champion.
So the X-T4 is much better than the X-T2, and it's marginally better than the X-T3. And I say marginally as in the sensor is the same in the X-T4 as it is in the X-T3, but the X-T4 has things like in-body image stabilization, better, longer-lasting battery, that kind of stuff. But the actual sensor and the image quality, etc., will be identical. So the difference between the X-T4 and the X-T2 is quite substantial. However, as I would always say to everybody, if you are getting out of the X-T2 what you need to get out of it, then hold on to it. You don't need to upgrade just because something is shiny and new. You want to upgrade if you feel like you're not, it's not giving you what you need. It's maybe the burst rate isn't quite fast enough, or you need bigger prints or something. I don't know, but whatever it is, then that's worth thinking about. If you want to get into filming stuff like that, then you're going to get better film control with the X-T3 and then subsequently with the X-T4. But yes, it does depend a little bit on on where you want to go. I would say if you're still using the kit lens, then possibly think about if it's the image quality that you're struggling with, or you're being confined by the lens. Maybe think about getting a couple of the newer, faster prime lenses instead of upgrading, at least at first, to see what opportunity that gives you. I mean, the 18mm 1.4 and the 33 1.4, stuff like that. Now these lenses are just absolutely phenomenal.
I wonder what his kit lens was, because that might make a difference in how you choose to suggest lenses to him in the future.
The kit lens, I think, is the 1655, isn't it? Or was it the 1550 to 80? I can't remember, but it depends. There was a couple of kit lenses, but honestly, there's no such thing as a kit lens with Fujifilm cameras. They don't make. I mean, they have the XC range that which you don't see very often, which are the kind of very cheaper plastic built lenses, but the optics are still very good. But yeah, I mean, kit lenses are not in the Fujifilm range. Are not really. They're called kit lenses because they come with a kit, but they're still excellent lenses. So unless it's the XC range, as I said. So yeah, that's my advice really. But only if you're struggling, should you really be thinking about upgrading? And yeah, it might be worth holding off for a few weeks, maybe.
Why would that be, Kev?
I don't know.
Come on. Come on. I haven't got a sound effect here for the thumb screws being turned, but okay. Your turn. Yeah, Facebook.
So the Facebook thread obviously is there it's pinned at the top. Well, I think it's got lost a little bit recently because we've had other different things pinned. Yeah. That's one of the problems with Facebook is it is the most terrible interface.
Terriblest?
I think with all of their bazillions of pounds, they'd be able to make it a little bit nicer looking. It's awful. Hate it.
Maybe that Elon Musk will make that his next company that he's going to buy.
Maybe Elon Musk. Yeah, Elon Musk. Yeah, he's going to be the next blinking president, isn't he? Right. So we are going to have to go back to 5 days ago for the last question that was posted in the questions thread. Now, one of the reasons, by the way, people, is that we went to monthly was because, we thought that you might all be getting a bit fed up of questions and stuff like that. So we'll give you 4 whole weeks And in the 4 whole weeks since the last recording, the Facebook thread has had 3 questions posted.
Well, I mean, it's had plenty of other stuff. I mean, it's a really busy, really busy profile. But
Anyway, Wade Brown. This one's directed at me, I think. G'day, Kev. I have loved your YouTube videos on editing your photos. Would you be looking at doing anything similar in the future using your Lightroom presets? Would you love to see how you go from your raw to finished images, etc., etc.? So generally, this is about why the hell either you or I have not done anything on YouTube for decades and decades and decades. And for me, really, it's just come down to the fact that it's time. I forever need a new haircut. I've got bags under my eyes. There's a day of the week with a Y in it.
Hang on a moment. You have got to a stage where, Kev, you look pretty sharp, I think. You've done so well with your. I mean, you've been on the money with the booze thing. That's why, by the way, after the 16th of June event, we will be going to a yoga retreat for the evening and not O'Neill's bar like we did before. But you've been on the money with that. The food, brilliant. The judo's going really well. You've trimmed. You're ready, Kev. I mean, physically, you have no more excuses.
Okay, all right. That's very kind. But so the real answer. So to answer the question more directly, and I don't want this to be about my presets or such, is there is a video on my website that kind of shows the one-touch mechanism of it. And I have done kind of videos on YouTube where I show how I process my raw images, but not using my presets. So that might be of interest for people who have not, who don't use or don't like to use presets and stuff like that. And generally, though, with YouTube, I've now got a new video light. I've reorganized my studio to give me a little bit of a YouTube space. Yeah. But every time I look at it, I think, so I'm going to spend 3 days filming, of which 8 hours of that will be me swearing at the thing as the auto cue. My phone slips off the auto cue, or I'd say and all of this stuff. I just get angry. I'll go home angry. I'll come in the next day. Then I'll just rush it, and then I'll spend another day editing it, and then I'll stick it on YouTube, and then I'll get a thumbs down within a minute. And then YouTube will give me 28 pence at the end of the month. That's the kind of thought process that I go through.
There's a couple of people on YouTube I have been, and I can't find the guy's name. I've been following of late because of the simplicity, Kev, of how they do stuff. So there's you saying to set it up with the auto cue on, whereas I've been watching people against black backdrops, where I'm just engaging with them.
It's not so much that I have thought about it, and I have actually got a whole load of ideas for films and stuff that I will do. It's not so much the backgrounds and all of that kind of stuff. I can deal with that. It's maybe you're right. Maybe you've touched on the right idea there with a simple thing. Maybe basically I might just start doing videos that are totally uncut. So I'll just bumble through, because I've bumbled through answering this question, but I know the God of Neil will go through the edit and get rid of a whole load of ums and ahs and
I'm not there to do it for you.
All that stuff.
Your YouTube.
Whereas on YouTube, it's much more difficult, and you don't see jump cuts very often now in like Peter McKinnon's videos.
No, you don't. No.
So in the old days, there was jump cuts everywhere. Arms flying, appearing in the middle of nowhere and stuff like that, where he was piecing together sentences that he'd cocked up. So I quite like the idea of it being nice and clean, but then at the same time, maybe I don't know. But ultimately, yes, no, maybe, sometime, perhaps one day. I'm really busy though at the minute. Believe it or not, I've got like stuff,
things to do.
Paint pots. I've got a picture, photograph. Holidays I've got to go on.
Now you've got Airstreams you've got to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But yes, no, thank you, Wade. It is a bit of a kick at the butt. I do need to get my act together.
Here's one from Jody Cochillo. I've been shooting in P mode, trying to focus more of my...
Yay!
See, there's somebody else in the world. You're the other one.
Go P mode, go P mode, go P mode.
You should have a T-shirt. Who was that guy that used to say I shoot raw or whatever it was?
I'm going to do a T-shirt on our merch page. We have got a merch page, by the way.
I shoot P. I shoot P.
Mugs and stuff.
We have, yeah.
I'm going to do T-shirts. P mode.
P more.
P mode God. P mode. Yeah.
I don't know. I've been shooting it. We got a bit lost there. Shooting in P mode. I'm not editing that out though. Trying to focus more on my surroundings and composition, which is why you would use it, of course. Letting the camera make choices. In what situations would you come out of P mode and override the camera selections? So, Kev, Do you ever come out of P mode?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, of course. So P mode is, I do use it a lot, and I'll explain why in a moment. But yes, you do also need to, I believe, you still need to understand how to shoot manually, even if you never use manual, but you might use aperture priority or shutter speed priority or something like that.
Do you look at aperture priority as more sort of the one step removed from manual or something?
No, I would say one step removed from P mode aperture priority. And then if you're using aperture and shutter priority, or not priority as such, but if you're controlling aperture and shutter, then you're 2 steps removed from P mode, 1 step closer, 1 step removed from manual.
Sounds like a dance.
There you go.
To the left,
I could write a book
to the right.
that no one would buy. So yeah, I mean, for example, if I'm shooting, a wedding, for example, dance floor stuff, I'll likely be taking more control of the shutter speed. Aperture is nearly always going to be wide open at that point, so I'll just lock it in. Yeah. Although the P mode, A mode it is really in Fujifilm world, would be shooting it wide open anyway. Yeah. ISO, I never, ever take control of ISO. It's always auto ISO. Unless I'm shooting in the studio, of course, or I'm using, lights in the lighting system in the studio, or when I'm filming, then it's all fully manual. Yeah. The reason why a lot of people will be going, P mode, that's not a proper photographer, P mode. And to those people, I get it. I understand, there's certainly an element of
snobbishness.
You need to know how to drive a car properly. Yeah. You can't drive a shift gear stick car and then jump into a manual or automatic, I should say, or the other way around. But, we've come a bloody long way, and cameras these days, we spend, this is the argument I had all those years ago, we spend 2, 3, 8, 10,000 pounds in some cases, like mine, on camera systems. And the reason why they're expensive is because there's been very clever people who have figured it all out, and the metering and all that kind of stuff is, long gone are the days where we would necessarily need to be using light meters, handheld, and all of that kind of stuff. There are certain, there's places and times for that, but generally trust the cameras, trust them, and you'll be amazed. I'm looking at a wedding right now. In fact, I'm editing it right now, where from last weekend, where I've shot it in P mode. All of the outside stuff is in P mode, and which meant I had no consideration whatsoever about exposure, none whatsoever, and I'm just concentrating on what I'm seeing. And that's just liberating. I
don't shoot in P mode, but I shoot religiously in aperture priority. Just that one bit of, I just want to control that depth. That's all in the photograph. Everything else, you're quite right. And I think the revelatory thing that happened a good few years back now, really, was when auto ISO became so good, you really didn't need to bother about it. You could pretty much set up the parameters of what you felt comfortable with in terms of what the shop was going to look like in certain lit conditions when it was dancing about all over the shop. But since then, I'm like you. I've never ever with any camera system thought beyond using auto ISO. Now that was the first part of that whole process of it for me. That then I know how to shoot manual, but I really only ever do it in the studio.
I remember when I think it was the Canon 5D Mark I. I think it must have been that one.
I don't know. I don't think 5D had the auto ISO, did it? I'm not sure.
It introduced it. Yeah, it introduced it. I'm sure it came in a firmware update. I thought that came with the second one. Maybe it was the second one. I don't think I used the second one. Maybe I did. Was that 2008? I don't know. Anyway, one of them did. One of the Canon systems. There was a firmware update. It didn't come with it, but they updated the firmware.
Right, okay.
And they introduced this auto ISO thing, but it didn't have the ability to set a minimum shutter speed. So it was useless. It was absolutely useless. You'd set your ISO limits and kind of ground level and top level, ceiling level, but the shutter speed would then go down to like a quarter of a second or something.
Okay, that's nice.
So it was absolutely useless. But that was when it first kind of became a thing. But yes, I mean, no P mode. Yeah, go P mode.
T-shirts available on the 16th of June at the House of Photography. More merch. That's what we need. Right, let's hear part one of our guest this week. And here's an ambassador from America who is now also living in Jamaica, though he's an obsessive traveller with a passion for culture. As you'll hear, Kirth Bobb is an award-winning photographer and Fujifilm X-Photographer whose work illustrates the synchrony of life and spans several genres of photography, including commercial and editorial and street, which we'll talk about, and fine art photography. Though in this half we'll start with his thoughts and feelings about social photography, in particular wedding work, part of the tapestry of somebody's legacy, as you're about to hear. This is Kirth Bobb. Kirth, I was chasing you across different time zones, and right now you're in Jamaica. I can't keep up with you, but actually Jamaica is sort of. I mean, DC is DC your first home? Jamaica your second?
No, I would say Guyana is my first home. That's where I was born. I moved to DC in '97, finished up high school and university there. But I've always had a longing to return to the Caribbean. Yeah. And as someone who really enjoys being immersed in a rich culture and being in spaces that feel supportive and nurturing of me, yeah. Jamaica is a place that, it was kind of a no-brainer. So I now have a place here in Jamaica that I also call home. And, the goal is to kind of be a bit of a world citizen. Who knows where else I'll end up, right? Yeah. But it's this idea that for me, I think after the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, I've always kind of like a desire to just expand and travel and see more adventure. But during the pandemic, it really highlighted just my need to be out more. Yeah. And just to connect with people, not necessarily out, but just in different spaces and learning different things, interacting with different energy. Jamaica made sense. It's a place where I come and I feel like goosebumps and things.
I mean, the pandemic, as you mentioned, we called it lockdown. You called it shutdown, which seems shutdown seems. Lockdowns seem bad enough, but shutdown as language is even worse.
Yeah.
Somebody like yourself who's very gregarious, you can see that in your photography. You like to be with people. I would imagine that caused a great difficulty for you during that time.
Not at all. I kept moving. Within the confines of understanding that, during the pandemic, I became acutely aware of just my responsibility to others' well-being, Yeah. So I traveled. I spent a lot of time away during the pandemic because I needed to. And it was one of those, it was weighing, I got tested often, super safe, but carrying that responsibility, but also this responsibility to myself and my own well-being, where it's like, I need to leave, I need to go.
Your work is about the synchrony of life. Now, I read that as things that kind of develop as pairs almost. They sort of work from each other. I spoke to Magnum's Alex Soth recently, and he has a project called From Here to There, which is, I suppose it's a similar kind of thing. Is that what you mean by it, that things flow?
Yeah, it's a synchronicity, right? It's harmony.
Yeah.
I think we live in such a world that is polarizing and non-celebratory, if that's a word, of differences. But there are places, there's so many instances and moments where differences are harmonious and celebrated, right? And create like the synchronicity that's almost magic, where, I know for me, it kind of took me into a different space once I started looking at the world that way. Because one, it built optimism. It's like, if this perfect photograph can show up in front of me, so that's what it is for me. It's a synchronicity. It's recognizing the synchronicity in just mundane moments. It's recognizing that, everything is beautiful. Everything is beautiful if you're standing in the right place at the right time and the light's hitting it where it needs to hit it. There's beauty there. And a lot of those ideas I take into my life as well, in my relationships. And it's always, okay, so this thing may be shitty. Maybe I'm not standing in the right place and looking for
Actually, when you look at your work, light is a word I would use. There's nothing dark about your work. There's nothing sinister about your work. You had this Afro-Guyanese upbringing, which you feel drives your photography. I suppose you're referring to these vivid colours, aren't you? The first thing you said to me.
Absolutely.
I have to share this with you. First thing Kirth said to me when we went on Zoom a little bit earlier on, and you kind of gave me a sort of tour of your house by the fact you were walking around with your laptop, and I said, "Look at those colours," and you said, "Well, I'm just about to change it and paint it."
Yeah, I think as I've lived, there is a vividness to life that has become more apparent. Growing up in Guyana, we're really close to the equator. It's hot.
Yeah.
When we get sunshine, we get sunshine.
Yeah.
And the lights bouncing everywhere, and then the afternoons and the mornings, the lights. It's almost every spectrum of light that you can experience with the natural eye. And then the colors, I live in DC now, where anyone who bought a house in DC in the last 10 years, the house is painted gray. I don't know. If I were to line up human beings and have them assign colors to themselves, I don't think everyone would pick gray. There's a vividness to this experience that I'm having here. And I think growing up in Guyana, kind of going to the market with my grandmother, everything was about color. You could tell how good a fruit is by its color. Our schools, we were color coded. So going to like the bus park to pick up public transportation, you would see students in green, yellow, purple, just a vividness, and for me, it as I think about it now, it's again, like just kind of this harmony and differences, where everyone doesn't have to be the same. We don't always have to wear the same color or be the same thing to kind of fit some kind of construct. For me, color is, the color I experience in Jamaica is like full expression. Like people paint their houses whatever color they want. I know. And why shouldn't you be able to?
Well, your grandmother actually, I mean, you mentioned grandma just a moment ago, and she was quite responsible for the way you feel about things. And I know she didn't introduce you to a camera as such, or did she? There's a great amount of affection that I've not only read but seen you talk about when it comes to grandma.
Absolutely. My grandmother was a teacher. That was her formal education. But she was also an amazing floral arranger. She made these beautiful floral arrangements. She was a creative. It's probably the first creative that I encountered. And you match that with experiencing this unconditional love. And so much of what I have is owed to her.
So when did you pick up the camera then? If that wasn't grandma, what introduced you to photography?
I picked up the camera. Well, my grandmother also painted.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I got the inkling to create visually. The camera came when I was in graduate school and my sister was getting married. And I got a camera and I went to her wedding and I made photographs. I took photographs. And then I saw what her photographer produced and what I produced. And I was like, I could do this, right? It evolved from there. I would have people come over to my house. I had a speed light and I would just point the camera at them and click and send them something and, to have nice bokeh because I had like decent glass. And for me, that was a photograph at that point, right? And then I had an experience related to grandma where the last time I saw her, my ex-wife made a photograph of her and I, and that photograph is forever etched in my memory. Because what I realized is that photograph was proof of existence, that I existed and that I was loved by this person and that I came from someone, right? Like this person and I had a relationship. There aren't any writings about grandma and I and our great, friendship and familial bond. But there's this photograph. And it was at that point that I realized that what I was doing, at that point I was doing a lot of weddings. Like that's essentially what I'm doing. Like I am creating proof of existence of relationships that may not have existed, that proof may not have existed before. And from there, my formal education is in, computer science and network engineering, cybersecurity, very technical disciplines. But from there, I said to myself, well, I'm not going back to art school, but I'm going to learn this craft from like an artistic perspective. So a lot of self-study. And I was like, okay, so this camera is really an instrument for me to express myself in a way that's authentic and meaningful. And simply by doing that and putting my humanity into it, I kind of connect to others in that way. Because, that one photograph really kind of just set me on a trajectory to really understand what it was I was doing. And then, I went down the rabbit hole. I learned about, the Bressons of the work.
Salgado as well, because Salgado is a great influence on you.
Yeah, Salgado is he's Brazilian, and very like close neighbor. And just he's an economist who merged photography into essentially his life's work. So that's kind of my story with the camera.
Everyone is a photographer until they have to photograph a wedding. I am borrowing that because I like I like that a lot. And considering you're in Jamaica and DC, and I'm at a very small town a long way away, just west of London, I think we'll get away with it. But what did you mean?
Weddings is like every type of photography in one day.
Yeah.
With limited time, a finite set of tools, and the expectations of two families, right? Like, you don't get to do it again. There is no, let me come, we could reshoot. It can seem like a lot of pressure,
Well, I've never worn that responsibility before when you say the expectations of two families. Yeah. I've never thought of it like that before, but it is, of course, isn't it?
Absolutely. Again, it goes back to proof of existence. But for me, when I think of the wedding photographs that I make, I've been married, and I know that either the couple looks at those photographs and remember the joy that they shared in a time where they need that remembrance the most, or the people that come after them get this idea that, like, we come from love, we come from together, we come from community, right? Mm. That is what I mean by everyone's a photographer until you have to photograph a wedding, because you're doing photojournalism, at least the way I do it. You're doing photojournalism, you're doing product photography, you're doing some architectural photography, you're doing portraits, you're doing everything, like, on the same day. But luckily for me, the way I approach it is everything's already there. I just have to be aware and see it, so I don't differentiate my wedding work from my commercial work or my street work. It's how much awareness do I bring to that particular moment to find the beauty, right? To find the beauty and to, like, connect to it in a way that I'm like, when I click this shutter, I'm so into it. Like, this moment is so into it. There's no way, like, you gotta be a human being with a stone heart to not feel this.
Well, I always like the way Kevin talks about it when he says, think of weddings a bit like street photography. I'm working like a street photographer. I just happen to be at a wedding. Exactly.
And the wedding part's going to translate. Like, there's nothing hidden about a wedding. Like, you're going to know that you're at a wedding. Yeah. So my thing is, like, I just go and observe and find beauty and make photographs.
And Kirth Bobb returns shortly to talk about his approach to street photography and what being an ambassador for Fujifilm means. Be sure to visit the show notes this week for links to the 16th of June's House of Photography live show recording and photo walk. And if you would like more Mullins each week in your lug holes, as they say, be with him for his country music show on Konttinen, when he, as Country Boyo, plays you good foot tapping regular and also alternative country on his internet radio show, 5:30 p.m. on incapablestaircase.com. 5:30, that is, UK time. I also have my other podcast, Photography Daily, available on all podcast players, where we talk and think about the why of photography. On Mondays, we set an assignment, and today's is all about connecting with nature, a 7-day challenge for one super picture. And on Friday, it's the photo walk. And this week, my guest on that show is Dr. Grant Scott, where we discuss or ask, why is documentary photography always seemingly so sad? Or is it? Plus, we start a mini-series called Instagram's Curiosity Shop and go in search of wonderful, unusual profiles on Photography Daily. Right, questions. We'll start with email, then we'll have one of your Facebook ones, Kev, and then it's Book of the Week. So, Hovland Perspective. Is that the company? I think it is. This is from Corey. Hello, good afternoon, gents. First of all, let me say thank you. Thank you for a great show that's kept me sane through the pandemic. Well, that's very kind of you, and I actually, in all seriousness, I think it helped both of us during the pandemic, didn't it, Kev? Really?
Yeah.
Something in the day. It was there was kind of a moment in the day which we said, right, we have to do something then, apart from sit down and just look at Lightroom. I found your show after purchasing the XE3 and quickly listened to every episode. Pre-COVID, I ventured way outside my comfort zone into street photography for the first time and found out that it was my favourite genre to shoot. Addictive, exhilarating, exciting. I switched to Fuji after being a Nikon shooter my whole life as I fell in love with the compact size and rangefinder look to the XE3, perfect for what I needed to explore. Then the pandemic hit and suddenly the streets were empty. Since then, my motivation has been lackluster at best. I still take hundreds of photos a week, whether it's my daughter and or husband or landscapes and the occasional street venture. But when it comes to editing, I open up my editing software and just find the prospect of going through these folders daunting and end up shutting off the computer, waddling my Corey's words here, not mine. Lazy butt to the couch and turn on CSI.
I got one of them as well, Corey. It's fine.
Or Star Trek or some other program. Kev goes one step further and puts the ears on. Anyway, my question is, do you ever find yourself with such a build-up of images that the very idea of opening up your editing software makes you feel physically and mentally exhausted? I'm only chuckling because I think we've all felt that. I'm looking for anything you might do for yourselves that gets you off the couch and in front of the monitor and begin chipping away. I've been a photographer for over 20 years, says Corey, and I feel like the digital age of being able to capture hundreds, even thousands of images at a time has finally bitten me on the, and it hurts.
Lazy butt.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Keep up the great work. So what do you think? Yeah.
There is a very simple answer to this.
To shoot less.
Yeah. Take less pictures.
Yeah. This idea of having to shoot everything. I know since I've been photo walking, Corey, and when I originally did it, I thought, right, I've got to bring back loads of stuff here from each photo walk. And now if I come back with, I often end up with about 4 shots I'm moderately happy with as what I call sketchbook images. But I rarely come back with more than 10 to a dozen shots.
So I think we all, and I certainly include myself in this, we all suffer from, it sounds to me like, most of this work that Corey is doing is not commercial stuff. It's, it's family at home, that kind of stuff. And we're all very guilty of wanting to have the best picture of the best moment of a particular thing that happened. Now, let's just say, for example, you're having a family meal at home. I don't know if there's kids, but the kids are there. Could be adults, whatever. Yeah. Let's just say, let's try and neutralize this. You're having a dinner party. There's some children there, and there are some adults there. And you're playing a game of Connect 4 or something. Do they still make Connect 4?
Blimey, I'm not coming to one of your parties.
Connect 4.
You were much more fun when
we get the Connect 4 out before the non-alcoholic drinks. Just to raise the excitement level.
You were much more fun when you were drunk. No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I'm being
all right. I'm going to make it far more exciting.
Go on then.
They're playing Ludo.
Oh. Now you're really stretching. What about Uno? Let's go for the big one.
Oh no! Well, what's that thing? I saw this at a wedding on the weekend for the first time in a long time. That thing where they stack loads of pieces of wood up and then they all fall down.
Oh, Jenga.
Jenga. Yeah. Okay. You're playing Jenga on the dinner table, right?
Yeah.
So you know that something's going to happen.
Yes.
You do not need to be taking thousands of pictures before and all that kind of stuff. Just take 2 or 3 pictures, and yes, the actual picture you may get may not be the most explosive, exciting moment of the entire evening that actually happened in real life, but you cannot be expected to get those pictures. Get the ones, to get a picture, get a couple of pictures and think, yeah, I'm happy with that. And then move on, do something else, whatever, and then, it kind of manifests itself, especially with street photography and stuff, where if you just go out and you walk with no objective in mind, then you will end up just taking hundreds of pictures and probably you won't, you'll come home and you'll think, I don't know whether that was good or bad or whatever, and now I've got to go through all the images and stuff. Whereas if you go out and you think, right, today, and we've talked about this loads of times, I'm going to concentrate on, human interaction, or I'm going to concentrate on color red, or I'm going to concentrate on architecture or whatever, you'll shoot less, and then that means you'll have more keepers and your editing process will be a lot easier. But ultimately, it really does come down to, to not overshooting, and we're all guilty of it. Though I'm not kind of pointing my finger at Corey and his lazy butt. I'm just saying that this is a thing because of digital photography, and cameras these days are far more capable of shooting at burst rates and all of that kind of stuff. But try and step away from it. Perhaps there are times when we need those fast burst rates, but there are also times when we don't. But we still use it. That's the simplest answer.
I think it's a nice idea, by the way, to look for a few challenges and to go out with a different sort of thought in mind to something that you might shoot that just focuses, if you pardon using the pun, focuses you on doing something rather than thinking, oh, what is there today? When you've got that much to shoot in the world, because there's always something. Sometimes there's too much. Does that make sense?
I mean, even when you're just photographing the kids at home. I mean, our kids are a little bit older now, but when they were younger, there was, mostly my thought process would be based around the light, and if there was good light, strong light, then I would be reaching for my camera. Everything else, probably not so much. And that's a thing. If it's becoming a chore, if it becomes a chore to get the images off the camera, then the love affair will end soon enough. Yeah. That's a problem. So try and snip that problem in the bud before it's too late.
I can't remember who I was talking to the other day. I was just having a conversation. but we were talking about thinking like film, i.e., giving yourself a number of actuations, a number of shutter presses.
You don't need to think like it. What you do is you get yourself a 64 megabyte memory card.
Oh,
you're physically
I see
limited.
What you mean? Yes.
I do that on my workshop sometimes. I take some with me and I give them. They're a bit bigger than that. I can't remember. I think they're 128
what a good
megabytes,
idea.
but they're really old memory cards, slow old memory cards. There you go. You got 15 minutes. Fill the memory card up, and it only takes about 3 shots. And you can do that if you're really struggling. There's a thing you can do, and I totally agree. That idea of thinking like you're shooting film, but we're not shooting film, are we?
No, I know, but if you think in that sort of giving yourself, a limit.
Limit it physically. Then stick a small memory card.
Yes, well,
in.
that's a good idea. I didn't think of it that way. So that is a really good idea. Actually, Corey had another question. He said, embarrassingly yours, because he wrote back with another question, because he'd sort of gone off with a tangent with that one, which I thought was a very good tangent, by the way, Corey. But he said, since switching to mirrorless from DSLR, I was wondering if you find yourself using the EVF or the back screen more when taking photographs. I find even though the back screen seems more convenient, I still use the EVF most of the time. Just curious, as I see so many vloggers, YouTubers always using the screen when out on the streets. What do you prefer?
I use the EVF mostly. I don't like using the flip screen and bringing it down to my waist, purely because I then have to bend my head and everybody gets the glare off my bald patch. But I don't. I mean, there are times when I will use the flip screen, and if you're kind of standing on the street corner and you don't want to be looking like you're taking a picture, then that makes sense. But probably I would be zone focusing at that point if I can. But yeah, I mean, I use the EVF. I mean, the resolution in the EVF is always going to be better if you're outside and sunny day and all that kind of stuff. The EVF is going to be much better for you.
So it could be an advantage in some situations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Thank you, Corey. Book of the week, Kev. Book of the week. You got to do this with the accent, by the way.
No, I can't, because
you got to do the whole
all of the northeast people.
The whole book review with the accent.
I can't do it. I can't even say the word biker in a Newcastle accent.
Biker. That's about as close as I'll get to it.
I just can't do it. Yeah. Biker Revisited. Anyway, it's too much of an important book. Biker Revisited, Portrait of a Community. So this is as the title suggests, revisited. So there was an original version of this photo essay called Byker, which I think can't seem to find a copy of it anywhere, but by researching it, I think it was from 1983. This is Byker Revisited, which is still 2009, so it's still quite an old book by photography book standards. But it's great. Emily sent it to me. Lovely Emily. Happy birthday to you last week, by the way. She said to me that, have you seen this book? I think you'll love it. And I said, no, I hadn't seen it. Please send it to me. And so she did. And it is absolutely wonderful. I'll read the little blurb. So I'll spell her name as well once I've pronounced it. Sirkka-Liisa Konttinen. Sirkka-Liisa space Konttinen. We will, of course, link to all this in the show notes. Anyway, moved to the Byker area of Newcastle in 1970, and shortly after her arrival, she began to capture the spirit of the community in evocative photographs that formed the basis of a book and film. Since leaving Byker in 1976, Sirkka has maintained contact with the area and its many residents who have become her friends. Byker Revisited is a visual and verbal documentary, a portrait of a contemporary community that is in flux, a community of the poor, the disadvantaged, and the refugees who demonstrate a life-affirming humanity, which is captured in the words and Sirkka's stunning photographs. So Lee Hall does the introduction, and he's the writer of Billy Elliot, which I didn't know, but there you go. Obviously I knew about Billy Elliot, and he does the introduction to the book. So yeah, I mean, it is a wonderful book, and I'm just reading Sirkka's biography, and she's a founder member of Amber, which is a film and photography collective which came together in London in 1968, and then thereafter moved to Newcastle upon time. So there we go. But it is an absolutely beautiful book, and I would love to get the original version of it, the kind of Byker version. Yeah. And it's one of those books that there is some text and stuff, stories about the people, but mostly you're going to be drawn to the images. I think there are some images from the original kind of series, if you like, but obviously most of them are kind of more recent from when this second stage of it was done effectively. But it's those kind of images that are, again, we talk about this all the time, based on nostalgia, but it's people being people. And it's, there's elements of very, very strong environmental portraiture in this book. It's not street photography as you would think. It's not like a Tish Murtha type documentary book.
She's gone into people's houses and photographed them, hasn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's clever placement of props and objects, not props, but supporting elements of the environment. So there's a lovely picture, page 26. His name's Stephen Hewson. There you go. We know Stephen Hewson, don't we?
We do.
Stephen Hewson and Dog Blade, 2009. And it's this is massive dog. This guy. There's a clock that's been placed on the sofa, and then you have like the TV in the background. All of that kind of stuff is great. There are some more candid type snaps, if you like, on the streets, but really it is this environmental portraiture element that is just beautiful. Nancy Meek, retired dressmaker, 2007. So she sat in this beautiful red armchair with this very, very, bearing in mind this is 2007, the photograph was taken by a very 70s looking room, with electric fire bolted to the wall, porcelain statues on wooden shelves, all that kind of stuff. And she sat there, and she's got this, this dress that presumably is one of the ones she's designed in the past, holding one of those really old retro phones that she clearly still used at the time. Wonderful. And some of the images, when we photograph, like wedding photography and this kind of photography are not in the same kind of connection, I suppose. But when we photograph bridal prep, one of the things I hate the most is when I hear, and it's usually the mother of the bride, bless them, "Oh, I'm just going to tidy up. Don't take any pictures until I tidy up." And and I hate that, because actually that's what, when they look at these pictures in years to come, they'll think, "Oh yeah, do you remember when we used to use those things and they're scruffy and stuff?" But yeah, there's a beautiful picture on page 51. It's just the scullery of Mr. and Mrs. McCartney, 1977, and it's just a picture of their kitchen or scullery in those days, and it's there's a tea towel hanging on the wall, there's pots and pans, there's obviously no such thing as a dishwasher or a microwave or anything like that. It reminds me very much of my grandmother's kitchen. It's a water boiler bolted by the window. All of these things, that it's a simple picture that at the time when that picture was taken might have just been a case of picture of a kitchen. Now, very important picture of a kitchen.
Absolutely.
Love it. So there's a real mixture of image styles in this book.
Because some of them are much more contrived, aren't they? Contrived not by Sirkka, but by the people within them. You get that feeling. I'm looking at the kitchen one where there's a strange scene being acted out with a girl here there's a Jack Russell on there's wearing some sort of weird outfit on a table, and just behind her there's a husband, a partner, a boyfriend, whatever, doing some sort of strange blades act, and then a mannequin in the foreground. So some of these which sounds weird when I explain it like that, but some of these are contrived, sort of almost theatrical moments that these subjects have put together. And in others, I think they've said, well, what do you want us to do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and absolutely. It's a real mix of different genres, if you like.
Yeah.
For example, page 74 is Bollum Coin, 2009. Now, that was presumably a housing estate. And it's in, it's derelict in this picture. Yeah. It's a panorama, actually. It's really nice.
Yes, I've seen that one. Yeah.
And all of the stairs the doors are bolted up, and everything is kind of shuttered, and the grass is growing all over it and everything. But again, it's it's one of those things that how many times do we walk past buildings that are about to be demolished and stuff, and just think, it'd be a shame when that's gone, without actually thinking about taking a shot of it or anything. I've just literally flicked to page 170. Marie Anderson, care worker, 2005, and it's shot through a pair of back doors of a house, and she just stood there with her hands on her hips, looking very, very nonchalantly at the camera. Yeah. And next to her is a massive Father Christmas that's bigger than her.
Are you tempted by it? Because this the behind closed doors thing of this kind of photography. I know it's not all about the behind closed door thing, but this behind closed doors thing is fascinating, isn't it? This way of, and I talked recently to a Magnum photographer about this, actually, about this idea of the camera allowing you to just be professionally nosy and get into the place where you really want to be, which is behind their front door, to see what gems their house has to offer. Does it inspire you to want? Because I know it's not the kind of photography you do, Kev, necessarily. But does it inspire you to go and do this kind of thing?
I mean, I would love to do this kind of thing, but I think the greatest barrier for almost all of us is just that, and including myself, is that ability to, or that confidence to be able to, knock on a door and say, "I'm a photographer.
Can I
take some pictures?"
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and that's the hardest thing. Once you get over that, then I think it's all systems go. There's a great one here: Sisters Morgan and Demi-Ord with dog Chico. 2009, and they're sat in their bedroom, bless them, all pink and dolls everywhere, and they're holding on to their teddy bears. And then Chico, the looks like a French bull terrier or something like that, cute little dog, is sat in this little pink chair with a pink fluffy thing around his neck. Yeah, that's next to the one with the one with the knife that you mentioned.
Brilliant.
I can't find. There is another one that I did really like. So Thomas Thompson, retired seaman at St. Lawrence Mission Hall, 2006, and he's just stood there in this beautiful shard of light. Now the mission is obviously in a state of total disrepair, or actually it's being repaired or maybe converted. We don't know. I mean, it may say more in the text, which I obviously don't have time to read through. But this is clearly a place that he has nostalgic thoughts about, and he's sitting there and he's almost like a little schoolboy. He's looking nervous. He's in his best finery, but he's got one finger gripped by the other hand. That thing that little nervous schoolboys do, and schoolgirls. Sorry, hold their little finger. And he's just kind of stood there like this caricature, almost like a little Mr. Ben in that picture. But yeah, it's lovely. It really is. Great, it really is a lovely book. And of course, it will be more powerful for people from the Northeast or from that, from the Byker area, Newcastle area. But I think it's a really interesting book because it's not street photography, it's not portraiture, it's not anything specific. I would, if I had to define it, I would say it's environmental portraiture. Yeah, it goes beyond that. Really, really cool book.
It reminds me actually that there was a place that we had. What was it called? Bishop's Green. That was it. That had all these sort of prefab stuff from war period, which they were knocking down to give everybody new houses. And I remember just as I was starting out with photography, I invited myself to go and take pictures. I must dig those out because that sort of, I didn't manage to get into many houses, but certainly they came out and stood by their old pride and joy, which they didn't want to see knocked down, which made that quite an interesting project. But this book is available now, isn't it, Kev? You can buy this?
Oh, yeah, this one is. It's been out for a few years, but it's highly available. Northumbria Press published it, but we will link to it, of course,
in the famous show notes. Right, let's have part 2 of our interview now as we return to Kirth Bobb, American ex-photographer. And we touch on street photography this time around and being in the Fujifilm fold. Well, you mentioned your street work, so let's talk about that. I was looking through your project work. Humour and irony plays a lot into your work, Kirth. The guy at the flea market at his stall looking properly miserable in that black and white picture. And then there's a row of goofy smile cushions above his head, which I love. And the lady holding the "You're Fired" sign, holding it aloft to Trump supporters in DC. What is your process on the street? I know some people don't feel comfortable with this, but are you a hunter or are you a gatherer for your stories?
I think I'm both. It's a balance. I'm both. Yeah. Sometimes I can sit there and I see an interesting scene or an interesting stage and I wait. Other times I observe something. I simply trust that either the same thing is going to happen or something better, and I go towards it. So I think I'm both. I know different photographers have different ways of working scenes and all these other things, but really it's a lot of my street photography has been just a play with fear.
A play with fear.
Yeah, because I sometimes I go and I photograph in places that may not on the surface seem welcoming,
right, or
safe. And for me, it's pushing past to hold the camera up and to make the photograph. Right.
Well, I was going to ask because these are very intimate, very personal pictures. Some of these. Now, I was going to say, do you draw the camera? Because I know what you mean by some of those scenes where you may not necessarily feel so invited. Do you draw the camera to your eye, or are you quite clandestine about it and shoot from the hip?
If I'm scared, I'm drawing it up to my eye.
You're drawing it to your eye if you're scared.
Yeah, because for me, if I feel like this is a tense moment, right? For me, that's signal that I should go dig in to kind of I might miss it. Like I want to like compose it and like, work with it. I was in Haiti a few years ago.
I saw those. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's literally a photograph where the guy you could probably see spittle, but I was really close and I was like, this is a scene. And I remember him was upset.
Yeah.
And look, I understand, some people go to places to tell their version of the story of the place. I try to go to places to observe the story and tell that as much as I can, being an outsider, having spent a limited amount of the time there. So there is a feeling sometimes of these people being exploited. I remember going to Cuba twice, and the first time I went, it was very welcoming, very warm. The second time I went, people were like, don't take my picture. So there is that balance too, where, if you ask me to delete a photograph, I will delete it, but I will always engage you in conversation around what it is I'm doing, what it is I see.
Do you think some of that distrust, some of those feelings happened around about lockdown or shutdown, as you call it, because we had social unrest, we had political unrest, we had, all manner of things happened where photographers are almost run the gauntlet of being not trusted like they once were to tell the truth.
Well, I think those things have always been present in just our existence. I think the lockdown just amplified everything. Yeah. I think the birthright of every human being is to be able to tell their own story. Like that's fundamentally a birthright because you're experiencing this life, you're experiencing you. And there are places where people have told, like Haiti, for example, right? The story I've heard about Haiti by whoever told it to me was that this was the poorest, most desolate, most horrible country in the Western Hemisphere. And then you realize that, if these people tell their story, they'll tell you a story of pride and resilience and beauty and connection to the land and magic and revolution. And it's like, so telling your own story is a human right, man.
Well, I love that. I love that picture, by the way, talking of stories, where you have somebody stretching out a calf muscle, pushing against a tree, which is that's a DC one as well, which is in itself, it's a nice moment, but actually it becomes an entirely different moment when you take it one step further and you give a tilt to the picture, which makes it look like the world makes it look like the world is being pushed slightly left. And that's a great idea. I wonder whether did you do that at the time with your camera, or did you see that picture afterwards in post and think, oh, I see what I can do with this?
I did that in camera. I think a lot of times when I go make photographs, right, it can be nothing but imagination, right? That photograph, do you remember the cartoons, like the coyote versus the roadrunner? Yeah. It would always be like hijinks, right? The roadrunner would be coming around the corner and the coyote would be trying to push a boulder on.
Yeah, that's right.
So that photograph, I think there are two people walking towards.
That's right.
Like, oh my gosh, it looks like this woman is trying to as soon as they walk, she's going to topple this tree over them. But the humor, right? The humor and the lightness to this thing, there is humor. And I think for me, a sense of humor has been a great means of survival and thriving because, it can get pretty heavy. I can't tell you the last time I sat and watched the news because the sense of humor is gone.
Well, there isn't any at the moment.
There isn't any at all.
Being a Fujifilm ambassador, what has it meant to you?
I would say this. Congratulations to Fuji. Being trusted by a brand, it means a lot, but not everything. Because I don't assume that a brand knows everything. I've had a relationship with Fuji for a long time, a long time. I've used their cameras. I believe in their philosophy. I wouldn't have been an ambassador for any other company but Fujifilm.
Right.
And at the time when the ambassadorship program expanded, I just remember thinking they were one of the last companies to actually make statements. I guess this was kind of the first wave of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion work that a lot of corporations are doing. But I remember them being very thoughtful and thinking it through instead of just knee-jerking and say, you know what, give us 5 Black people. But the way in which they did it was thoughtful. And I think it allowed them to expand because now you have, if I'm making guitars, I want as many genres as possible being created with my guitars, versatility. And I think Fuji did that. It's good to be among a group of creatives who create from the heart.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soul in the X-Photographer program, and they're just a lot of people doing their own thing, which I think is beautiful. Like, I think it's beautiful that we have, the Mike McCoys, the Lena Robinsons. Like, Mike McCoy is a Capitol Hill / White House photojournalist for the New York Times. Lena Robinson, her work is just magical. It's more representative of life through photographs. And I just feel incredibly honored and blessed to be a part of that thing and still be embraced and allowed for doing my own thing, embraced and supported for doing my own thing, Well,
we're talking about creativity. Authors, foresters, musicians, cultural artists, chefs, writers. They're all within your portfolio of portrait work. What's not to love about being a portrait photographer, right? I mean, if you ever wanted a job that could bring you into contact with a mix of people that you'd never have a chance to meet usually, either become a head of state or a photographer, it seems to me.
Yeah, agreed. And that's one of the beautiful things about living in DC is that every part of the planet is represented in that small little city. Yeah. DC is a very special place because people come there to essentially make change, right? Or to connect with change makers. And I've had the privilege of working with a lot of human beings who are like the first of something, or people who simply see the world as it is, love it, but think that it could be better, and are actually taking those ideas and creating things with them. So, the portrait work has allowed me to meet just incredible people. Yeah, no. And as a result of that, it's kind of confirmed a lot of what I've always believed, is that nobody's special. We all special. We all, I would photograph an ambassador or something, and we had the same problem this morning. Like, we had a problem getting out of bed. Our hair was like, it's a lot more flat than I think we're led to believe. Everyone's experiencing the same thing. Everyone got the same problems, maybe just at different times or different severities, but everyone got the same problems. So that's one of the things that portraits have allowed me to kind of confirm, is that, everyone deserves some level of compassion and understanding and just love. And on
your Insta, I always read bylines because I always think what people use in their bylines says so much about of the way they feel about themselves as much as their work. So I know I'm looking at you now thinking, oh, what have I said?
No, this is like the best part because you did your research.
But no, I saw it. You say sharing what I've seen. A lot of people put a lot of commercial stuff up when they do bylines. I must go and look at mine because I think I've done that. But you said sharing what I've seen. It's really simple. I know it's we're not talking rocket fuel science here, but what do you want to see next? I mean, you've shared what you've seen. What do you want to see next? What is in the world that you haven't seen that you very much want to? You're a traveler. You like to move.
Where does moving take me next? I have a trip planned for. I'm going to Morocco. It'll be my first time in Africa.
Oh, color,
everywhere.
Right?
But also color, culture. The Morocco trip, I'm working on a friend commissioned me to help with the book project that she's working on. But what do I want? I want to see more of me, right? And that's like photography has always been an exploration of just me. Yeah. I want to see more of me. I want to see more of me, just like I've seen all of me in every place that I've been. I want to see more of me because seeing more of me, whether it's in Morocco or India or wherever I go next, I know that I'm confirming more the shared experience and this kind of dissolving a lot of what I like to call separateness. One of the things I would tell photographers when I mentor is that it's really simple. Everyone cries the same. Everyone laughs the same. There are these primal expressions that we have that just kind of flatten, right? We may do it in different contexts, in different environments, but it's all the same. Whatever differences they are to be celebrated, because that's where the art comes, right? It's like Morocco, you mentioned color, like looking at how they build buildings, how they live, how they express themselves. For me, it's like expansion. It's like, whoa, okay.
What color's that wall going to become behind you?
Oh, I think I'm going to leave this green, I think I made that decision today. I'm going to leave this green, and everything else is going to be just like off-white and then art. Yeah.
And our thanks to this month's guest, Kirth Bobb. And you can follow his work from the links in the show notes, as per always. Right, back to your questions. I think we've got time for a couple more, Kev. Couple more.
Okay, well, we'll go with one from Paul Zillard. It's not a question as such; it's more of an answer to something we both struggled with a couple of weeks ago.
All right.
Listening to podcast episode number 223, I felt I had to chip in, commenting on the Tascam Xlr Adapter. I remember we were talking about that.
Oh, yes.
So for those that don't know what the Tascam is, it's still unavailable. It's still on pre-order. I have one on pre-order. It's Tascam Xlr Adapter for X-T4, I think. Fujifilm anyway. So you'll be able to plug XLR microphones into your Fujifilm cameras.
That's right, yeah. And then goes through the hot shoe, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And he says, Kevin was a bit woolly about what it does. And Neil then commented about unbalanced audio being passed through the camera.
Yeah.
Perhaps I can add my 5 cents worth. So ready to be reprimanded?
Yeah.
Number 1, the Tascam unit provides 48 volts phantom power to mics that need it and convert the analog audio from the mic into digital, which is then passed as digital to the camera to record with the video. This way, the camera's preamps and analog to digital circuits are bypassed, with hopefully a superior alternative. Number 2, balanced XLR has 3 wires, such that one is the ground, and then the 2 signal wires are of opposite polarity.
That's right, yeah.
There we go. That way, any electrical noise will cancel out, as in positive added to negative signals.
Yes.
Whereas the audio signals is doubled by the preamp when it inverts the negative signal and then sums it up with the positive. Net result is pure, in air quotes, audio. So unbalanced being passed to camera is not really possible. There you go.
So going through the hot shoe means that you don't get that balancing issue.
Correct.
Right. So do we get for you and
I think we both got one of them.
and for me as well,
But
right?
actually,
okay.
I'm really glad Paul told us that, because I think
Now I
probably
understand.
quite a lot of people would be wondering about that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people will have just listened to that and thought, what the actual is he talking about? Next time I'll say it in like German or Spanish or something, just to make it a bit clearer.
far more sense. But it does sound a great bit of kit though, Kev, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm really excited by that, actually.
Yeah.
I have to say, I've got a Tascam external audio thing that I use when I am doing my YouTube stuff.
Yes.
And it's very good. It's only a little red box, but the preamps in it are amazing.
Yeah. But it'll be nice when it comes out, when all these things are available again. Marcus Norman, hello from an expat living in Lake Forest, just north of Chicago. I've been enjoying your podcast for a few months now. I started with photography shooting portraits headshots about 4 years ago and relied on a job referral service called Thumbtack to gain clients and experience. I'm not aware of that one, but obviously it could that's probably an American one, isn't it? That worked well. So I stopped the service and then the pandemic hit. Consequently, work has slowed down to a few portraits per week. While I do enjoy photographing people, I'm starting to consider using a few of my interior design and real estate photos, which are hidden at the moment within his website, to gain some additional work. When I just first started out with photography, I tried shooting interiors, architecture, asked a few friends if I could photograph their spaces. Really enjoyed it, but thought portraiture could be more viable. My question is really related to branding speciality. What do you both think about potentially having 2 separate websites? It's the old chestnut, this one, Kev.
Yeah.
One for portraits, one for interiors / architecture. It feels to me that the audience and product for each is so different that it could make sense. I may have just answered my own question, but I'm always curious to hear your take on the business of photography. Thank you, from Marcus. Now, we both, I think, come from different places. Well, used to be the same place, but slightly converging places on this one now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always said that from a market. So if we're talking about a marketing point of view, SEO, all of that kind of stuff, there is no question that 2 separate websites are the answer.
Yeah.
There's just no question. However, there's a lot more parameters that are involved, such as cost, cost, time, effort, reward, all of that kind of stuff. There seems little point in having a separate website for, let's just say, the interior stuff if you're not getting much interiors business, which perhaps you won't know that until you build a website. But the brutal fact is, if you do want to give yourself the best possible chance from a marketing point of view in terms of SEO on Google and Instagram and all that stuff, it is unequivocally best to have separate systems. But that does not mean that that's the only answer, of course. There are many people. I mean, I have on my wedding photography website a whole section dedicated to family photography, for example. I did go down the route of having a family website. Took it off my photography my wedding website. I built a new family website, spent a lot of time and, Squarespace fees and all that kind of stuff. Didn't work. So I, ditched it, didn't renew it, and brought it back onto the wedding photography website. So, I think Neil always mention, if it's so different, such as boudoir and pets, for example, you probably don't want to mix them.
I think I'd feel I meant diverging, not converging, by the way, by just a moment ago. But no, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable. I don't shoot boudoir, but if I did shoot boudoir, I don't think I could have that on the same site as a website where there were child portraits, for example. That might be me being a bit squeamish, Kev. I don't know, a bit old-fashioned, perhaps. But I think some things might coexist more easily and more comfortably than other things.
And you can also, of course, and I agree. You can also, depending on the style, if more of the stuff that you're doing is commercial, right? And by that I mean I'm not including like weddings and family portraits and stuff. You could market it as an agency, a photographic agency that has different strands to it. And that would cover your interiors, your commercial portraits, all that kind of stuff. That can be one particular website. I have one. I have an agency website. I call it Flying Monk because of the Flying Monk of Malmesbury, and that's where my commercial stuff sits, and that's where I'll put my, my kind of corporate stuff, if you like. Mostly it's pictures of paint, pots of paint, but that's it. But that's working for me. That website works. I wouldn't have that commercial stuff on my wedding website. In no chance. But I would have my family stuff on there.
I thought I recognised the Flying Monk because I spoke recently to John Mayer, who used to be, who was a Buzzcock. He was in Buzzcocks, not the Buzzcocks, Buzzcocks, the punk band. And he has a Flying Monk blog. But then directly underneath, Flying Monk Media and Photography Agency, which is your one.
Yes. Well, you know what the Flying Monk was?
Well, a flying monk in Malmesbury, but obviously not.
Elmer the monk was the country's first aviator. This is in 1005 AD. The date of the flight is judged to be recorded.
Right.
He flew from St. Stephen's Tower, which you can see from our window, to the Abbey, over the Abbey Gardens, essentially.
Well, did he fly in or on?
He crashed and broke both his legs.
Oh.
He didn't die.
So he didn't really fly there?
The Flying Monk. Elmer the Flying Monk.
So
my business is called the Flying Monk Agency.
So that's as much flying as that event they hold. Is it in Brighton or Bournemouth, off the pier, where people jump off the pier each year in these extraordinary contraptions that they say are flying machines, but they are no more than really just big stones.
Correct. Yeah. But he was the first person to try that. But he chose the 300-foot tall St. Stephen's Tower.
Yeah, not the best flyer. I'd have perhaps chosen a pier to start with, except there wouldn't have been any piers around then. I appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. I don't even think Brighton had been invented then.
No, maybe not. But, right, yeah. The diverging concept or thought that I have slightly on this, and I was always very firmly, because I do have Breathe Pictures and I have Neil James as two very separate entities. One is corporate, one is weddings. But I never have time to work on... I'm not a massive company. I don't have time to work on both and work on SEO for both. And I've also had a few conversations at weddings in particular. And I always felt squeamish in the past about saying to anybody who's corporate, well, I'm a wedding photographer, because they'll be, I can't possibly use you now. But that's their problem. By extension, it could be my problem as well, but in that they won't hire me. But the amount of conversations I've had at events where somebody has said to me, "Is this all you do?" Where I've gone off on some sort of tangent about, well, no, but I can do that. When actually I should have just said, no, I can shoot a few portraits, and I do a little bit of this, and I like food photography, because the chances are they might just say, well, I mean, I've got a company, and I quite fancy you to come and do this. And I wonder whether I'd be missing opportunities by being so firmly, no, that's what I do, and not straying?
I had a conversation with another photographer at a wedding a while back. Actually, this was probably autumn last year sometime. And he was chatting to me about equipment and everything. I didn't know he was a photographer at the time. And he was chatting to me about my cameras and everything. He was quite interested. And he said, yeah, I'm a photographer. I do corporate work for big marketing agencies, kind of London, all that kind of stuff, And then he said, I couldn't, I respect you for being a wedding photographer, but, weddings, I couldn't just do that every Saturday. What about your weekends and everything? I said, and he said, well, is this all you do? Is weddings all you do? I said, oh, no, not at all. I said, for the rest of the week, I sit in my garden and enjoy myself.
Touche.
He stopped then.
Yeah. International Birdman, by the way, is held in Bognor Regis and Worthing before we
Bognor Regis. Yeah. Yes, Bognor. I had a girlfriend from Bognor once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right. Is that worth the story? Or
really.
should we possibly move on?
There are several stories, but not worth it. No.
Yes. Right. So, do we have time for one more question, or I think that might be it? Or have we got a QQ there, Kev? Have you got a QQ? Is there a QQ?
Yeah, we can. I can stick a QQ in. I can stick a QQ in. Kevin Rugland.
Yes.
Hi, Kevin Mullins and Neil James.
Okay.
I have a short question for you. Today, I'm going to ship a print from Norway to the USA land.
Oh.
And I was wondering how I should wrap it up so that it will arrive safely. I was thinking of putting silk paper on the picture side and rolling it up and sticking it in a cardboard pipe. Have you done it? Got any tips? Have a nice day, night. Look forward to listening to you on Monday. So this is obviously absolutely no use to Kevin because he will have already done it.
Be very, very well. For if you're sending them in the future, the one thing I would say is a rolled up in. I think you've got to send it rolled up. Do not send it. It doesn't matter how many sheets of or bits of cardboard you put in to try and keep this thing rigid. If you send it as a rigid print, I just find that they're just, when they get to the other end, they're just not really flat anymore.
Yeah, I think though ultimately that is, you need to get the right tube.
Yes.
You can get some very hard wearing tubes that I wouldn't just use a cardboard. I wouldn't recycle something you've been sent before.
No.
I'd get a specific hard wearing, borderline wood metal pipe to send it in, and make sure that the ends, the poppers on the end, the Pringle popper on the end is fully nailed in. Staple it in, tape it up, everything to that end, so it doesn't come out, because you know what it's like with Pringles. Once you start, you just can't stop.
Don't send stuff in metal pipes, though. The customs officials will be like
metal, but as hard as you could possibly find.
Look at what we got over here. Shall we take it apart? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
But right, that's it for another month.
And don't send it to the UK though, because it won't get you.
Why won't it get here?
No, it'll get stuck in somewhere, Europe somewhere or whatever, and then it'll come later.
You'll get the paper. You'll get the paperwork for it. Here, have some paperwork. We've kept the picture. Oh, thanks very much.
Thanks for Pringles.
That's it for this edition. If you'd like to send in your questions, please do. Facebook, of course, we need your Facebook questions. How do you do that, Kev? Tell us. Illuminate.
Pin post at the top.
Yep.
Put your questions in there, and we shall get to them at some point. Hopefully.
Okay.
And next time I'm going to try and see the ones that I've said I'm doing something today, rather than reply months later.
Click at fujicast.co.uk is the way to send them in by email. And of course, for the patrons, you get bumped to the front when your questions come in via Patreon. Now, 16th of June is not that far away. 2022, just in case you're going back over the catalogue and thinking, 16th of June 2023. No, 22 is the one we're heading toward here. If you want to come, what do you have to do? Because you need to be quite sharp on this, because I reckon tickets will start going now.
Yeah, you need to go to fujicast.co.uk and you need to go to the merch page, and there is it's the one at the top, and you need to just click there and just put your name and address in and check out. It's basically a buy-in procedure without any money involved, but we do need that.
Sorry,
and don't forget to we will. Oh, sorry, I know I'm ruining the end of the show, but we won't put this on the Facebook group until the podcast has been in circulation for 2 days.
Right.
So those of you that don't use the Facebook, then you've got an opportunity to jump in there.
Super. Right. Well, and we look forward to seeing you at the event. And I will see you next time, Kev. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Fujicast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.